What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Fringe. Independence is already being threatened in Alberta. In fact, there is a possibility that while Danielle Smith has said Tom Lacaze's petition, should it be validated, constitutes a question that holds for a referendum ballot on independence, there are wheels in motion already to make sure Albertans never get that vote. Not through Danielle, but in general. And I've said this when it comes to our politics, and I know people across the country are maybe a little tired of us talking about Alberta, but this is going to transition into why we're hearing rumblings about a federal election. Why I said yesterday, Mark Carney will win a majority government if we go to the polls. People have to take into account how serious this is. And I'm going to show you what's happening in Alberta right now, and how this is a coordinated effort. And what you're about to see is absolutely disturbing. I talked about this on last night's live stream. Of course, only so many people watch the live stream, so we have to put it out for everybody to see in the masses. Teachers are using children as weapons. They're using them as a bargaining chip, but now as a liberal mouthpiece to stand up for their political beliefs, their political structure. This is all in an attempt to run Danielle Smith out of office, and it's coordinated on multiple fronts. But what you're about to see happening with kids, if you thought grooming was an issue before, when it comes to gender, when it comes to all of these questionable things teachers do with unsuitable materials they send your kids home with, I'm going to show you what I'm talking about straight on Twitter here. As we head over to Nicole, tweeting out, but the ATA, meaning the Alberta Teachers Association, says it's not political. It's all about the kids. ATA is mobilizing in Calgary-Bow the riding of Education Minister Dimitri Nicolaides, I hope I'm pronouncing that properly, to collect signatures to have him recalled because they do not like the current offer to take funding from $13.4 to $17,000 per student. Now, I will quickly give the cliff notes on what Danielle offered. Because the NDP, when they were in power in Alberta, offered 0%. I want you to remember that as this video continues. Because the filibustering and the gaslighting is unbelievable. 17% was offered by Danielle Smith, meaning the average wage of the entry-level teacher was going to go starting from $70,000 a year all the way up to the top rung of the ladder, receiving $119,000 per year. That was the raise offered. Danielle offered to also build in approximately somewhere around 130 new schools. She also offered to hire a total of 3,000 new teachers, 1,500 more working aides or teachers' assistants. The deal was pretty darn good. Now, to put into context, once that deal was offered, the ATA turned that down. And they also said, we want double, essentially. They wanted roughly 35%. And when asked, how are we going to pay for this while we're in a time of inflation? How are we going to pay for this when we're already running a deficit in Alberta? Their answer, you should bring in provincial sales tax to pay, tax the citizens and give us what we want, or else. Now they're mobilizing students on their behalf. And you'll see it, you see it down here as the students are moving out. The teachers are using their indoctrination habits to try and push this on. You even had, and we showed this on Wednesday's stream, which was unfortunately removed. But Jack tweeting out, Jack Dan, good friend of the channel, by the way, always on top of this stuff. I'll just read it out. It doesn't really transition well to a full screen. This was for St. Basil's School. We're excited to welcome everyone back to school tomorrow, Wednesday, October 29th. We are asking students to wear red to show support for our amazing ATA members. As well, food orders will commence, starting with pizza orders tomorrow. And then down here, immediately a retraction because there was a huge blowback from parents. Thank God. I would like to apologize for the earlier message encouraging students to wear red to show support for the teachers' return to school. Upon reflection, I love how it's, oh, I just came up with this myself. No, you got blasted. So after being blasted by parents, I recognize that this request was not appropriate and could unintentionally create feelings of division within our school community. Our goal is always to ensure the school remains a welcoming, inclusive, and supportive environment for all students and staff. We truly appreciate the enthusiasm and care our community shows for our teachers. Nobody is supporting this. The woke sheeple, the elbows up crowd, they're supporting this. But it's being used as a catalyst to get Danielle out of office. This has nothing to do with your kids. It has nothing to do with students. It has nothing to do with overcrowded classrooms. What you're going to see here, as students were encouraged yesterday to walk out of class in Edmonton and Calgary to support teachers, the teachers said, "You'll be marked as absent, but it's worth the cause. You're free to walk out and leave so long as you're going to the protest to request that teachers get more money." You'll see this coming from Jack Dan as well. For some reason, it's been removed from Twitter. But Jax is from the DMs. A student at St. Albert High School and his friends were disciplined for not partaking in the protest today. He was put in study hall because he didn't walk out. Social assignment was given on researching 3 events where workers were pitted against the government. Of course, all the screenshots were down below in his original tweet. And I have to say how disconcerting this is, that you have teachers using and weaponizing students to say, go out and protest for us to get more pay. Go say how unfair we're being treated. We're slaves, after all, being offered up to $120,000 a year. And if you don't go, you're going to be branded a leper and you're going to be put in study hall to write reports on why you should be standing up for our cause. As students headed to the legislature, I wanted to point out that this is what the left is doing. This is what social media is being crowded with, is when you talk about misinformation, when you talk about spreading lies and spreading false accusations. This Greg Carbine has been tweeting out, and he's just one of the thousands that are polluting online with false information. You've been lied to. Teachers were not involved in the student protest. So you can see the original tweet going out. Teachers who led the protest and those who had their kids walk out of class should be fired. I am not surprised at this very unprofessional behavior. And it goes on to say things. It says here in the tweet, a small gathering of purple-haired kids walked out of school and are protesting in front of the Alberta legislature because they are mad at Danielle Smith. I wonder if they even know what they're mad about. This person said teachers are telling them to walk out. This guy comes out, hey, teachers weren't involved. Really? Because this says otherwise. This says otherwise. Wear red and support our teachers. Support the ATA. Oh, and if you don't go to the protest, you're in study hall. What's funny is this picture is being absolutely dragged out. Again, the same account saying you're being lied to. Once again, it hasn't snowed in Edmonton. You had people saying that this photo was taken earlier. It was a different protest because there is snow on the ground. What's funny, ladies and gentlemen, is this isn't snow. This is people who don't know what they're doing. They just jump to conclusions again. Now, if you look at Corey Morgan's, they retweeted Cat Canada's posting and said, oh, look, they got their facts wrong. This was a different protest. There's snow on the ground. This is not snow. This is pavement. Right here, what you see within the boundaries of these borders, and this grate here signifies it. This is a wading pool area that is in the legislature. People can walk in there. Their kids can go in there in the summer. It's only like ankle deep. But you can see the water sitting over here in a puddle, and these are footprints from people who walked in said water and got the concrete wet. But everybody says, oh, look, this is from a different protest. There's snow on the ground. And granted, if you look at it quickly or if you look at it on your phone, you may say, oh, look, that's a dusting of snow. It isn't. So this was the protest. Now, a lot of people use this and said, oh, look at all the students who didn't show up. And granted, I will give credit where credit is due, because after all, I called out the lefties melting down over the independence rally. This was the site of what's happened at their protest. Now you can see here at the back, this is where that waiting area starts, the waiting pool. So there's probably only, again, when we go through the crowd, this is to the right, there's to the left. There's probably only about 1,000 students here total. So 1,000 students who were indoctrinated to go out and push for teachers' rights, or else you get punished. My good friend Theo Fleury, the indoctrinating and grooming children is almost complete. It's really sad. Now, what does all of this have to do with independence? I'm glad you asked, and I'm sorry it's taken so long to get here. The ATA, the Alberta Teachers Association, that claims that they're so hard done by the way, when they took teachers on strike, they claimed they did not have a strike fund for teachers. Teachers weren't getting paid while they were on strike. And I asked Grok to go through all of the articles, all financial statements, all everything, and said, you know, they spent $1.1 million on an attack ad for the NDP to go after Danielle Smith, even though they claim they're not political. They didn't have money set up for teachers. Where do their dues go? What do their fees cover? Well, this tells me on Grok that the Alberta Teachers Association collects approximately $43.2 million annually in membership fees and union dues. Based on its most recent audited financial statements for the fiscal year ending in August of 31st of 2024. This figure represents the primary revenue source for the ATA, recognizes fees received for receivable from its approximately 55,000 total members, including 48,900 active full-time, part-time, and substitute teachers, plus students and associates. It shows here that they pay a flat annual fee of $14.22 for full-time active members. Part-time members are appropriated by 1%. Typically 1.25% of their salary. Substitutes pay 1% of their earnings. About 20% of the collected fees are rebated to local associations for their operations. Total ATA revenue is $52.5 million. It says down here, these figures are from the ATA's official 2024 annual report and align with third-party estimates of the organization's $101 million in overall revenue, including investment, income, and reserves. Reserves! But they told teachers there's no strike fund. Thank you for paying your dues as we send you to protest and demand better pay. We'll take our $100 million and walk off into the sunset. Here's where it all starts to come out against Danielle Smith. This entire strike was orchestrated to make Danielle look bad. Oh, the teachers. Oh, they're abused. They're slaves in our society. They don't get anything. This puddle of mud, Nahid Nenshit. It says here, must watch. Nenshi came out of the bushes to deliver this press conference. He told Danielle she's about to FAFO, which if you don't know, it's F around, find out. Listen to this cringy speech from him. And look at how he sways, how uncomfortable he is. This guy couldn't fight his way out of a paper bag. He's so horrible. And he destroyed Calgary as their mayor. This guy, if he sinks his talons into Alberta, we're done. He wants to override Danielle Smith so that he can get into Parliament, so he can shut down independence. They're livid. And Tommy's livid as well, and I'm going to get to that shortly after this. They're doing everything they can to remove Danielle from office so that Alberta does not get its independence vote, so that Danielle's out of a job, and so they can carry forward with the country's plan of ruining the rest of the country. I'll also get into how this translates into your federal elections. Listen to this nonsense.
The FO stage. FO, and the premier is in the FO stage.
Badass, 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 badass.
That means find out. It doesn't mean anything dirty. The first part is dirty. The first part is dirty.
Creepy.
I don't like this, you guys.
This is language I don't normally use. I'm a pretty even-keeled guy.
Pretty even.
Right. I have to pause it there. Pretty even keel guy. This coming from the guy who said during the lockdowns that anybody protesting the unfair treatment of losing your job for not getting the jab, anybody who said that they didn't want to be locked in their homes anymore, that their kids had to go back to schools, they should be allowed to shop in places other than Walmart and Costco. He said they were white nationalists that don't deserve to eat. He also called Alberta residents monkeys. Oh, he's a pretty even keel guy, and he doesn't use that kind of language at all. Give me a break.
Keel guy?
Try to be.
And I'll give Premier Smith some credit. She got the double play.
Here's the pitch.
And the big, strong, tough Premier.
Compliment her.
She is tough. She is strong. Her entire brand is she stands up for Alberta.
Ooh, is that a compliment?
He never compliments me.
And last night, I sat there the whole night.
I waited in the bushes.
It looked like an Undertaker's convention. By the way, I used that line this morning, and my friend Craig Snodgrass, the newly re-elected mayor of High River, who is an Undertaker, told me that Undertaker conventions are actually super fun. I will take him at his word.
The hell is he doing?
And that is what I saw in the faces of her caucus as I stared at them all night.
Creepy.
How much would this all cost, and where would you get the funding from?
Well, you know, the funniest part of that question is, in fact, it probably wouldn't have cost a whole heck of a lot.
So right there at the end, and that's the reason why I let the joke session go on, and I do get that they tried to get comical with it at the end. Nenshi doesn't actually have a plan for Alberta. He doesn't. So they ask him a reasonable question. How much would this cost? Where would you get the money from? He goes on to say, well, I don't want to say PST. I don't want to say we're going to tax people into oblivion. I'll just keep pointing out how bad Danielle Smith is. If you go to this guy's X account, that's all he's done. That's all he does on Facebook. That's all he does on any form of social media. Look at Danielle. Look what Danielle did. So he's the biggest advocate for Danielle to lose her job. But when we get to the independence movement and we get to what's happening in Alberta, Tom Lakasic, old Tommy the Commie, let's get in on what he had to say. Because now his Forever Canada petition is moving its way to being validated as a constitutional question, which he is furious about, by the way. But if you ever asked, why was Tommy so motivated with his halal mortgages to come in and try and push for Canada to remain in Alberta? It was all political, just like the strike, just like what's happening with Nenshi. It's all to drive Danielle out. But now Lakasic says there's a way for him to use the data he's collected, meaning all of the signatures, people's informations, which Elections Alberta must verify in order to validate his petition. But he says there's a way for him to use that data he's collected, but also says he never would, but then also says he might. The problem is the law is crystal clear. All signatures must be handed in, and any copies of any data must be destroyed. This is where I say APP is doing the best thing ever. They've come out, they've basically told you the same law, that any signatures or intents to sign that they've collected so far is only being used to email people to let them know when it's time to garner signatures. It is not being sold to third parties. It is your data is not being exploited. But here's where it gets into the interesting part. The headline of this article by woke Don Braid. Thomas Lakasic has a political treasure chest and he might start a new party. So if you missed why Tom Lakasic started the Forever Canada petition, it was meant to be a legislative vote. Meaning, what would have happened as soon as he garnered his signatures, if it was validated, is that the Legislative Assembly, meaning the NDP, the UCP, etc., would have had to stand up and answer individually, do you agree that Alberta should remain in Canada? Now, if Danielle Smith didn't stand up in agreement with Tom Lakasic, well, he would trigger an election. He'd say, that's no confidence. Look at your dictatorship-like MAGA premier. And this is where it transitions into the federal politics. Doug Ford talks about Donald Trump like they're close personal friends. MAGA, 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 Trump, Trump, Trump. You see the Prime Minister do the same thing. You see Mark Carney do the same thing constantly. Oh, it's all Trump. Trump's this, Trump's that. Orange man bad. Everybody get your TDS up in a bunch. David Eby's now doing it. Wab Kinu's now doing it. All Team Canada's jumping on board. And this is going to be the wedge issue should they go to the polls. It's what's going to secure a majority government for Mark Carney. People seem to forget that Donald Trump has nothing to do with Canada. Yet he runs our politics, even though he has no influence other than his tariffs and USMCA. People just seem to think that if you vote conservative, or if you vote for anybody but them and their fear-mongering, you're somehow going to get overrun by Donald Trump. I don't understand it, but Kasich would have done the same thing. Oh, Danielle's been to Mar-a-Lago. Danielle supports Donald Trump. She's trying to get U.S. deals with oil. She should be out of a job. I'm starting a new party. Let's vote non-confidence. Let's get Danielle out of here. Because if he would have got his legislative vote, it was to shut down further talk of independence. Now, what this all accumulates to, and again, I understand it's a lengthy video, but we had to show the teacher strike. We had to show Nenshi. We have to show Kasich exploiting people's information to start a new party and run for premier. This was all a bid. Because of the ATA strike, you have unions threatening across the province. Well, let's just go paint an awful picture of Danielle. Let's all go on strike at the same time. Let's have a general strike. This is all a push for non-confidence to get Danielle out so that you don't get your independence vote, so that you're not allowed to express yourself, so the Marxists in this country can jump on board with Carney, they can bury this province into the ground, they can essentially bend it over like Mark Carney has for the rest of Canada. All of your rights that you get from Danielle Smith, gone. No more defense. Earlier this week, Danielle Smith's UCP government forced teachers back to work after a 3-week strike using a notwithstanding clause. That's what it's for. The court would have ruled in favor anyways. This prevents the Alberta's Teachers Association from challenging this legislation in court. In response, the Alberta Federation of Labor announced that the wheels are in motion for a possible general strike by the province's unions. So you didn't give us what we wanted, so now we're going to go even harder. We're just going to keep coming after you until you bend the knee. And keep in mind, if Danielle did that, it's, again, a setup to run her out of a job. Let's say she took pity on the teachers. She realized, hey, I got to try and make good with them because Orange votes in Edmonton. I want to try and beef up my numbers. So she says, okay, we'll install PST and we'll do your 30-something% raise. All of a sudden, Albertans would be mad at Danielle Smith and say, oh, she brought in PST at a time where I can't afford anything. I'm not voting for her. You're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. That's what they've done with her here, is they've put her in a corner where no matter what she does, she looks like the villain. Unless, of course, Albertans stand up for Danielle Smith. This article goes on to finish up saying, provincial affairs reporter for CBC Edmonton, Janet French, walks us through how these negotiations got to this point, what's at stake for teachers, students, and the government, and where this fight could be headed. It could be headed to an election, an early election. The AGM is coming up in November. I will encourage everyone watching this video, if you're in Alberta, get a UCP membership, go get an I Am Alberta shirt, and get your butt to the AGM with a ticket if you can afford it. You can Google Alberta AGM tickets online, and or any search engine that you use. It'll take you straight to their page where you can purchase those tickets. We need to stand up for Danielle Smith. Albertans must stand with Danielle, or we risk losing absolutely everything. I know that this video kind of seems all over the place, but it all ties together, folks. This is a coordinated attack to ensure that Danielle Smith is not only out of the legislature, but that the vote that we're so hyped for, the vote that we're going to finally get, thanks to Danielle and her tireless efforts to make sure that Albertans had a voice, It could all go down the drain tomorrow if we allow Marxists, communists, the ability to come in and influence our children, as well as the other brainwashed sheep of this province, to remove the greatest thing we've ever had representing us next to Ralph Klein in the legislature. And I'll tell you, if we get that independence vote, Danielle may go up a few notches for me over top of old King Ralph. But I can assure you, ladies and gentlemen, if we lose Danielle, we lose everything. Let me know what you think down below in the comments. If it's your first time here, I hope this video's earned your subscription. Make sure as you hit that button, you join me live on the channel each and every Wednesday and Friday, except for tonight, it's Halloween. I'll be out with my kids. Join us every other Wednesday and Friday next week and every week for Unhinged Fringe on Wednesdays, Friday Night Fringe on Fridays, as I'm joined by the beautiful Mrs. Fringe on Friday nights as we talk about everything that's happened this week in politics, everything we know coming up in the week ahead, as well as your Q&A within the greatest YouTube community on the platform. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I'll catch you on the next one.